Today on the Rock Feed podcast, we're joined by a very special guest from truly one of my favorite bands. I've been listening to Shinedown since they first came out, and ever since then I've been hooked. And Eric Bass is such an integral part of Shinedown. He's not just their bassist, but he's also produced their last couple of records. And now he has his own concept album coming out called I Had a Name. I was just driving around. I've listened to the entire album, and it's absolutely fantastic. And you can really also tell, Eric, your influence over the songwriting in Shinedown. It is so fantastic, and it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Man, that's so nice of you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Let's just end it now. That was good. That was good.
No, I mean, like Zach Myers, I've had him on before, and he knows how much I love y'all, and such a fan. I love Planet Zero. Love the two new tracks. But so as I understand it, I Had a Name was actually put together, this album, before Planet Zero even. You've been waiting for a bit to put it out.
Yeah, it's sandwiched right between Attention and Planet Zero. So, the concept kind of came to me, or didn't kind of came to me. The concept came to me during the Attention album cycle, and both for the graphic novel that goes with this, that will be out later this year, and for this record. I worked on both of them, while the Attention touring cycle was going on. And then, of course, we finished touring Attention December, I think it was December 19th of 2019 in London. We ended the record cycle, and, thought we'd be right back. And then COVID happened. And, it actually gave me a chance to really concentrate on finishing the record. And Brent was kind of chomping at the bit to start writing. And I was like, hey man, just let me finish mixing this record. Like, let me get done with it. Cause it's just, it's a lot, it's a lot to do everything. And he was very gracious about that. And, I finished mixing, a couple of days before Brent showed up to start writing what would become Planet Zero. So, the record's been done for a while. I just never really had a perfect time to release it. There really isn't a perfect time when you're as busy as we are in Shinedown. Like you say, a lot of people are asking why there are two new Shinedown tracks out when you're putting this solo record out. It's just, I've got, we're a very much what's the right term? Democracy, I guess, is not the term I was looking for, but, I have three other people I got to worry about, and, they're ready to go with Shinedown music. So we put that out at the same time. And so again, it's always difficult to try to find a perfect time to do it. But, now is the time. So.
And I got to tell you, it's really amazing. I saved a couple of my favorite tracks from this album that just really jumped out for me. It's such a creative record. We Can't Go Home, I absolutely loved. All Good Children, I loved. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Modenheart.
Yeah.
You're like a musical virtuoso, man, because it's not just, it's not just like a straight up rock record. You're experimenting with a lot of different styles of music here, including electronic.
Yeah, it's just, I like a lot of different things. I mean, of course, I grew up playing in hardcore bands. I'm a metal and rock and hardcore kind of dude, right? At my core, but I grew up in a musical family. Like, it's just music all the time in the background. My grandfather played in big bands, what was called big band music in the 40s, like trombones and that big, like Benny Goodman and Tommy Dorsey. He played in some of those bands in California, and so that kind of music was always floating around. My mother was, and still is, a vocal teacher. And she's very much, into theater and Broadway and that kind of stuff. So we had a lot of that stuff in the house when I was a kid. And, then just discovering music on my own. I remember when rap music, what would become hip hop, but rap music really dropped. I was probably 8 years old, and all the kids on my block were breakdancing. Like it was like a thing. And so, I had some of the earliest rap cassette tapes, when I was that age. And so, like, I don't know, man, I've just kind of like had all these things that have just been injected into my DNA over the years, and a lot of things that make me tick. So that's really kind of what this record was about musically, was about just, hey man, how do I weave all of these things together in an interesting way that can be, you can have left turns that aren't what people are going to expect, but they don't sound like they're forced into the song. So I spent a lot of time doing that, a lot of time toying around with how to make these songs flow in a way. A song like Modenheart, where it's kind of in and out. It's like it's super heavy and then it drops into this piano thing. I do that a few times on the record. And a song like Dead Inside, where it has this sort of chorus that takes a turn, almost a completely different mix. Like none of the instruments that are in the verses are even in the choruses, and so it's like, but not having it sound like it just flew in out of nowhere and doesn't fit. So, that it's just kind of exploring my honest musical sensibilities is something that I was very fortunate to be able to do. I guess you can do that when you're doing something yourself. So you don't have to answer those other dudes. Those other dudes I was talking about earlier, right? In my band, they weren't there to pull me off the ledge, I guess.
And when I listened to this record, you mentioned the theatrical aspect, from your mom. I kind of sensed some theatrics to it. If I had to describe maybe some of the songs that I listened to, it was almost like this amazing crossover between, let's say, Muse, maybe Slipknot, and if they put together a Broadway play. It's like over the top epic, and I just really enjoy it. And I gotta say, it's so interesting to me that you're not just a member of the band, but you've produced for the band. And it seems like that's a tough job, dude. You gotta be really patient. All the producers that I know, the amount of patience that you must have to be able to do all of that in addition to being an actual member of the band.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it was actually when I did, I'd produced other things for the band prior to Attention, the full record. I produced Diamond Eyes and I produced Cut the Cord and,
oh, wow.
Co-produced some things as well. And, so, I had definitely been doing that for a minute. But when it came time to do a full record, it was kind of an experiment to see that if you can remain objective enough to produce your own band. I actually, man, one thing that we all kind of try to do in Shinedown, we make an attempt to do most of the time, is just to let the song lead us around. What does the song want to do? Don't fight that thing that the song wants to be. And I just kind of kept that going into the production, and it seemed to work out. It worked out as well on Planet Zero, and it's continuing into this new Shinedown record as well.
And do you want to tell us the name of the album and give us all the details to the new Shinedown record here? We won't tell anybody.
Yeah, man, sure. I have no idea what the name of the record is at this point. Like, it's still very much in the in process right now. We got the two songs out right now, 365 and Dance.
I love
Dance. Thank you. I've got some other mixes done, man. There's some other stuff finished for the record, but there's a lot of stuff still yet to be written, which is kind of an odd way for us to do a record. Traditionally, we go and we write everything and then we choose what we want to do. And on this record, we're kind of taking it a piece at a time. We've had 2 or 3 different recording sessions where the guys have come in and we've tracked and, kind of tracked through a few songs, 1 or 2 songs, maybe 5 or 6 songs the other time. And again, still knowing that we probably don't have everything we need for a record yet, songwriting wise. And so we're going to continue that process, but already having some of the record finished. So this is a kind of a different way for us to do a Shinedown record than we've ever done it, but it's going well. And
I think that the way that records are even being released have changed so much as well, that it sounds like the way you're doing it now is much more suitable for, maybe the modern era where you put out a couple of singles. People really have time. I know myself included, like, I've had time because it's just these 2 tracks to really dig into those songs specifically and appreciate them. And they're 2 very different songs, with Dance Kid Dance being much more of a heavier track and 365 being more of, sort of a ballad style. I love the guitar tone in that track. It's kind of,
thank you.
I just really love the sound of it. And, so how did you, you talked about some of your musical influences, but you said you're also a lot of a metal and hardcore guy.
Yeah.
How did you what did you get into? Let me rephrase that.
Sure.
I'm going to pause this because I messed up my question. I'll edit
fine.
it out and make it look slick.
Dude, don't edit it, man. Leave this in.
Leave my screw up in. You know what? We'll leave it in.
I did Rob Harrah's podcast or an interview with him a couple of days ago, and I completely I forgot what the song "All Good Children" was. I forgot the name of it right in the middle of the thing, and I'm like, I was trying to describe something in the song, I couldn't remember, and I just fell apart, and I had to get on my phone to look up a name to one of my songs, and he's like, "I'll edit it." I'm like, "Don't, man, this is perfect.
We'll do it live.
Do it live.
Do it live.
Do it live. Do it live. Do it live."
You know, so when you were growing up, what were some of those influences, you know, in rock and metal that got you into playing in bands?
Yeah. So again, the first cassette tapes I ever bought. Well, I mean, I don't want to give you too much backstory, man. But I remember having.
I love the backstory. I'll hear as much as you want to share. I love the backstory.
I mean, man, when I was 6 and 7 years old, I had all my mom's 45s and vinyl and stuff, and from when she was a kid, when she was younger. So I had like Beach Boys and Elton John, and I remember listening to the 45 for Good Vibrations like all the time. Help by the Beatles all the time on this 45. Crocodile Rock, you know, Elton John. And then on the other side of that 45 was Elderberry Wine, was another song that he had that was on the other side of that 45. I just remember sitting in my sisters had a record player. I didn't have one. They had a little Barbie record player. So I'd go into their room with the Barbie record player and put on these 45s and listen to them. And, you know, at some point, a friend of mine down the street, he gave me the Gene Simmons solo record album, and Quiet Riot, Come On Feel the Noise 45.
Wow.
And I hung on to those and I played those a good bit. And my dad found those two things in the top of my closet at some point and like threw them out. They threw them away. You know, it's like devil music, man. He didn't want it.
That's right.
House. Which is funny because later, like I'm talking, my dad passed a couple of years ago, but maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my dad goes, "Hey, you ever heard of this guy, Gene Simmons?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, like his Kiss, like we toured with them." And, you know, of course I've heard of him. He goes, "Man, that guy's really got his stuff together, you know?" And I'm like, "Do you not remember like throwing out my," and he swears he doesn't remember it. He swore up and down. He's like, "I don't remember that." I'm like, "Dad, that had like this demon face on the album cover. You don't remember like throwing that out?" Cause he's like, "Oh, I don't remember doing that." And I was like, "Well, that's whose record you threw out. That guy that you said has his shit together." Anyway. But so, you know, I kind of grew up with that stuff, but right after that, you know, that kind of phase is when this breakdancing thing happened, you know? And like, so I bought like there was a movie called Beat Street, and there was that soundtrack to Beat Street. And then, Shaka Khan, like I remember like people were breakdancing to Shaka Khan and like Fat Boys and I know I'm forgetting a bunch of other stuff, man. But that was early on. And, I lived in a very multicultural neighborhood, man. And so it's like everybody would like, you know, like I said, everybody's garages were just cardboard and everybody's breakdancing. So that stuff.
Where did you grow up at?
In Charleston, South Carolina, right here where I still live. Yeah.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, man. I love it here. But, that's the great thing too, man, about like where I grew up is obviously we're in the deep South. Obviously we're here where the Civil War started, you know, but, I didn't grow up with a lot of racial tension, man. There just wasn't that here. And there still isn't, to be honest with you. Like, I think that sometimes people think about the deep South and they think about division and all of this stuff. And, you know, I went to a school that was pretty much, well, it was actually a little bit more black kids than white kids, you know, and I spent my middle school years just playing basketball at recess, you know, and so I just listened to a lot of rap, man. I listened to a lot of hip hop and stuff, you know, when I was a kid. But mixed in there too was like I bought the cassette tape. I bought Queen's Greatest Hits, and I bought Aerosmith's Greatest Hits. And this is before Permanent Vacation. They already had a Greatest Hits out, you know, because they had broken up. They put a Greatest Hits out, you know. And so I listened to that stuff, man, a ton. And then, you know, fast forward into getting into high school, and then middle school, high school, that was like that cross. That was that era where Appetite for Destruction and Justice for All,
yes,
like, all of these things came out. Kind of seemed like simultaneously, like everything just dropped all at once, and really those were my first. You know, I was super into Van Halen at the time, but I think as far as like dangerous, Van Halen wasn't dangerous. Van Halen was fun, you know, and it still are. But But those two records, Appetite and Justice for All, those are dangerous albums, man. Like you heard those, and it was like they had some weight to them that, even as like a 12, 13-year-old kid, like I didn't understand really anything they were talking about, but you could just feel the danger in it, and those were kind of the first records that really kind of threw me into heavier music. And then, man, I was in high school at the perfect musical time. I was a freshman in high school in like 88, 89, 90, something like that. So
you kind of rode that whole grunge wave too.
Well, yeah, but it was just like in this, like grunge hadn't taken over. There was still like hair music going on. Like I still love Motley Crue, like Dr. Feelgood and all this other, this stuff was out. There was, White Snake and I mean, shit, man, Bon Jovi and whatever, was happening. I mean, honestly, dude, I play guitar because I heard Talk Dirty to Me by Poison on the radio. Like,
wow.
Because look, I mean, something that might seem foreign now to people too, is that there weren't like these, the formatting at radio wasn't what it is now. It was like we had a couple of top 40 radio stations here, and on top 40, you'd hear Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Poison, Rat, like all on the same station.
Rock was pop back then.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in front of the stereo again in my sister's room. They always had the big, nice stereos. I had a couple, I'm sitting in their room listening to the stereo and I heard that riff to Talk Dirty to Me. And I mean, to a 13-year-old or something, man, that's like, now you look back at it, it's easy to clown on it now or whatever. But I mean, it drew me in, and
I love Poison. I love everything Bret Michaels does. I love Rock of Love. It's my favorite reality show ever.
Yeah, dude.
But so how do you go from was Shinedown? I'm assuming wasn't your first band.
No,
you get into playing. How do you end up meeting the guys in Shinedown?
Well, yeah, just to kind of continue that story we were talking about. So I'll move it along. But high school I played in garage bands and stuff, and then when I got out of high school, I tried. Well, I didn't really try college. I was sort of sent to college for about 2 semesters, and that was no good. I just wanted to be in a band, man. I just wanted to play guitar. And I mean, all I did in college was sit in my room in my dorm room and play guitar. I didn't even go to class.
Yeah. I flunked out.
Yeah, dude, totally. Like hard. I mean, I had
Thank God for YouTube.
I had less than a 1.0. Well, I mean, yeah, but I didn't have YouTube then, man. I didn't have a cell phone. I just failed. But started my first band with some friends and again sort of started leaning into this more hardcore style music. At the time, I don't know if you remember this band called Stuck Mojo.
Yeah.
It was Rich Ward, who's now in Fozzy. It was his band at the time, and hugely influential on me, man. Like I saw them play. It's one thing to listen to music, but when you see a band like that play, if you ever saw them play, it was just energetic, man, bouncing off the walls like these.
And he's still very energetic live with Fozzy too.
But dude, it was just like these 2 black dudes and these 2 white dudes together in a band, just jumping around. And I mean, it's metal and it's heavy and it's fuck, man. Like that changed my landscape, because then it was like, oh, I don't just have to play guitar. I have to be a performer. Like I have to perform when I play. And that was really the turn that took me really into more heavy music. Like honestly, it was that, then it was Stuck Mojo and Machine Head and Slipknot and Sepultura, and Slipknot was later, but Sepultura and Vision of Disorder and Type O Negative and all of the it was just like that whole era of music for me was a Biohazard, That was my era right there. Yeah, dude. I jumped headfirst into all that stuff, and those were the first bands that I played in were that style, that kind of stuff. And we toured a lot around the East Coast, Southeast. And at some point those bands weren't going anywhere, it wasn't really happening. And so I decided at some point, hey man, I've been working, look, at the same time I'm working this construction job. I'm a trim carpenter. And so, and I've been doing that for now, it's like 10 years or something, and, I wanted to ask my now wife to marry me and whatnot. And I was like, I kind of probably need to figure out a career, I need to kind of figure something out.
You're like a fork in the road.
It's gonna be lucrative. And I mean, while all that playing had been going on, I'd been, I'd always messed around with recording. I'd always messed around with that. Even since I was a kid, like when that 13-year-old kid with his first guitar, I was making guitar recordings in my bedroom.
Were you big into computers?
No, and this was this was way before computer audio. So this is that's
recording on tape.
Yeah. So I thought very because I was a child, I thought I had invented multi-track recording. Well, I didn't think that at the time, but I figured out how to multi-track myself using my three sisters' stereo systems and my stereo system. And I'd bring all these stereos into a room and I'd record like a direct guitar onto a cassette tape in this one stereo. And then I could play that back into another stereo, record into that and play into that one at the same time. So I was like, and I go around the room with like all these cassette tapes and keep adding stuff to these recordings. And then eventually my mom at some point saw what I was doing and she's like, oh, they make a thing that does this. Right. So I got a little Yamaha MT100 4-track cassette recorder. Wow. And that was, I just had been making recordings like that, just of my own stuff for a long time, for most of my life. And then when computer stuff did come along, I jumped in there and I was making demos for my band, a band called Deep Field. I don't know if you remember Deep Field. I think they
Deep Field.
Yeah.
Dude, you were in Deep Field?
I started Deep Field.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding. So they have a cover of Don't Let Go.
Yeah. I made the demo of that.
Dude,
yeah.
No shit. I still listen to Deep Field. I did not know that. That is a random fact.
I wasn't on that record. I quit before. This is that time period. So I started that band. I started that band with Baxter, the singer. He and I, just the two of us. We made demos. We brought a couple guys into the band. But I was making a lot of demo recordings for that band. Personalities didn't work out in that band, so I removed myself from that before. I was there. Look, I was there when right up to that point of making the record and record or signing a record deal or whatever. And I just there were some conflicts of personality in the band.
It happens.
Yeah. So, but I was enjoying this recording thing, man. So I just, that was that same, I'm glad I brought that up because that was that same time period when it's like, okay, I'm going to get married and I want to go pursue this recording thing. So I did. And, so fast forward to 2007, Steve Robertson, who was Shinedown's A&R at Atlantic Records, who I knew through producing bands. And, I'd made some headway as a producer, producing some heavier bands, producing some indie bands as well. And so I had, people in the industry who were aware of what I was doing and knew who I was. And, Steve-O was like, hey man, have you heard of Shinedown? And I said, no. I haven't heard of Shinedown. At the time I was
in 2007. You hadn't heard of them.
Yeah, well, I wasn't aware. I was buried in a recording studio,
wow.
like working like crazy. But then he sent me some stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I know the Simple Man cover, and I know Save Me. I knew those two songs, and I was like, oh yeah, man, I know this band. Again, nothing wasn't the band's fault that I did who the band was. It was my fault. Again, I was constantly working, constantly in a recording studio and not really listening to the radio too much at the time. Anyway, he's like, well, how'd you like to work with Brent and do some songwriting and stuff? I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds great. He's like, he's writing for their third record. And I was like, yeah, man, let's do this. And interestingly enough, at the time, I knew that just from doing research, I saw that Rick Beato had recorded and produced a couple of songs on Leave a Whisper. And Rick and I were friends at the time, still are, but he's super internet famous now.
Oh man, he's killing it. Shout out Rick Beato. He does fantastic work.
But Rick and I, knew each other, and he'd recorded a band I'd been in. And then he and I shared a manager for producing as well. So anyway, I called him and I'm like, hey man, what can you tell me about this guy, Brent? And he goes, man, that dude's intense, man. He kept saying, he's like, he's really nice guy, but he's really intense. And I was like, okay, but he kind of prepared me for what I was getting into with it. And Brent showed up in Charleston and to work, and we went out and got completely blitzed that night. Like we went to a rock show at the Music Farm here in Charleston, which is a rock club here in Charleston, and got completely annihilated. I forget who was playing, but we didn't get much work done the next day either, man. It was rough. But the day after that, we convened. We wrote a couple of things, but Barry and Jason, the guitar player at the time, Jason Todd, they showed up to do some recordings. I really liked recording bands. I was like, let's write some stuff and then record it like with the band, and man, as soon as Jason showed up, and it wasn't Jason's fault. I'm not pinning this on him by any stretch of the imagination. It was just the climate of the band was such that when Jason showed up, the drugs started back up, and not with Barry, but with Brent and Jason, and it was like they just had that toxic twins kind of thing going on, and so the work just kind of stopped. I mean, nothing much really happened after that. And interestingly enough, Steve-O had asked me at the time. He said, are you interested in maybe being the bass player or trying out for the bass player position in Shinedown? They need a bass player because the bass players left the band. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, this seems pretty volatile, and I've got my career going on, and I just sort of politely said, I don't know. I'm not really sure if that's something I want to do. So fast forward again, I'm sorry about all this detail, but
no, this is fantastic. I'm fascinated.
Fast forward to, what's interesting too is Brent and I got done writing, and Brent I think he went straight from my session to Rick and wrote some songs with Rick Beato for stuff for Sound of Madness record. But anyway, fast forward a few months, and Steve hits me up and he's like, hey, so they finished this record called, and I want to send you some tracks and see if you want to audition for the bass player position again. And I'm like, man, I was like, he goes, hang on. He goes, the guitar player that was there is not there anymore. Brent's trying to, cause he can't get clean, and Brent's trying to get clean. And, so it's a much better situation. They got this new guitar player, another guitar player named Zach, and he's in the band. And, we just really want you to come to Orlando and audition. And so I was like, well, send me some stuff. And, he sent me the song. He sent me The Sound of Madness. He sent me Devour, and he sent me Second Chance. Those three.
Wow, dude.
And I was like, yeah, all right, man, I'll come feel it out and check it out. And dude, like from the second that I showed up in Orlando, it was like, this is the band. Like I don't know, man. And me, I'm trying to like not be too overly excited about it, because it's like, there was just some energy in the room when we played, and it was just the four of us and a sound guy, Carlos Oliveris. Shout out to Carlos. I haven't seen Carlos in forever, but Carlos was there, helping us with sound. And, just from that moment, it was like, man, this feels kind of cool. This feels right. And then I went out to get sushi with Steve-O that night, and Brent called, and he's like, so you want to be in the band or what? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'll do it, so began the Sound of Madness touring cycle that went 470 something shows, and just a grind. So began all the rock and roll cliches, and, Brent wasn't clean, and I tried to ruin my life once I got in the band, and,
Did you fall into substance stuff when you got into it?
Alcohol more than substance stuff for me.
Yeah.
I had some, not right away, so we toured on that record really hard, and that was just a party, man. It was just a party, but it was also, look, man, this is the thing about our band is like that tour, that record cycle was proof positive that we care about each other. And I know that sounds kind of weird to think, well, I just got in the band and we care about each other, but that was a lot of shows, a lot of road time. It doesn't take a lot of time to get close to people when you're doing that. When you're away from home for 6 months at a time, and you're all over the world, and things aren't great, and you have drug addicts, and you have, you're wondering what the, is, you get really worried about your brothers. You get really worried about their state, and so because of that kind of stress, man, I just drank a lot. I drank an awful lot, and wasn't the, I don't know the way they put this, but like, wasn't the best husband, and let's just put it that way. And had a lot of lessons to learn. But what's interesting about that is we came out of Sound of Madness and then started writing for Amaryllis. And, Brent and I spent a good bit of time writing together for that. And he still wasn't clean yet, but he was trying, he was trying to get there. And when we started touring on Amaryllis, he cleaned up. And I think that Amaryllis touring cycle, as far as like being the age that we were, the physical shape we were in, we were all working out together every day. Again, there was no more drugs. There was some alcohol around. I was still drinking on stage. I drank on stage a good bit up until the Attention record. I kind of stopped it. But I have some on stage anxiety, right? So I would drink whiskey on stage most nights, but not in a destructive way, Sure. Brent was completely clean. Man, we were a machine on that album cycle, like just a machine on that album cycle. And then came off of that album cycle into Threat to Survival and hit a wall again, and everybody fell apart, during that off time actually. And Brent fell back into drugs and alcohol. And that's when I started, abusing pills to try to feel better about, just my headspace, my depression. And, I'm not really an addict, man. I don't really have an addict personality or anything like that, but it was definitely something that was, that I was, it just, the opioids, man, they make you feel great, and when you struggle with depression, it's like, oh man, I'll just wake up. I felt like I could knock down walls every morning after you pop a few of those things. And it's like, I'm fucking ready. Let's go.
Right.
Which is the opposite of my personality, normally. So it was just like this, I found it was what I needed at the time. Wasn't what I needed at the time, but long story short, man, we came out of that the writing cycle for Threat to Survival into touring Threat to Survival. And it was very evident at that point that if Brent didn't get clean, that it was going to be bad. And, so we all kind of cleaned up, man, at that point. That was like grown up time. That was like, okay, man, if we don't fix this, then we might not be around anymore. And so we did. Look, I say we did. Brent, quit everything cold turkey, and just has been sober ever since. And it speaks to his, I'm not taking, that's why I'm taking off a we and putting it on him. I mean, that takes an awful lot of dedication and willpower, and just,
it's extraordinary.
Refusing to die,
Right.
And he is morphed into, one of the most extraordinary human beings that I know. And it's not just because he's a great singer or just because he's a great frontman, like really an extraordinary human being. Like he has this caring for people, and he always did, that was never not a part of his personality, but, you just had this other guy in the way of that sometimes, that would come out in his personality. But, so yeah, man. And since then, we did that Threat to Survival album cycle. And then that's when we went into writing Attention. It was the first record that either one of us had written completely sober. Like, like no, and that was kind of a worry too, going into that record writing process, which was, Brent wondered, like, can I write without this stuff, and
it's like a crutch.
Yeah, man. And I honestly wondered the same thing. Like I was used to having wine or something when I was writing, or pills when I was writing, and, it would kind of take the edge off, and you could, but we both had a conversation with him about that, and it was meant for me too, which is like, hey man, that talent doesn't exist in a substance. It exists in you. And, so everything that we've written since then has been, Attention Forward has been written from a sober place. So that's really good.
I think it's so fascinating because, externally, I never, I followed Shinedown closely, seen y'all more times than I can count, and I want to talk about your live performances as well. But it's amazing that externally, I really had no idea that y'all were like struggling internally with kind of the substance issues. Maybe early on, like in the very early years of Shinedown, you'd have an idea with songs like Save Me and stuff. But later on, it kind of never really seeped out from the band, and you guys kind of held it together very well, it seems.
Yeah. Publicly. Well, again, man, there is a deep love and caring between the four of us. And it's not to say that we don't annoy each other or that we don't have issues or anything like that. Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely do. But, look, I mean, and again, I say this, no, there's no trouble in paradise or anything, but very recently we were having, discussions about things in the band internally. And, I just looked up at some point. I was like, I don't want to play in a band with anybody else other than like, if it's not the four of us, I'd rather not do it.
Right.
And, but that comes from a place of love, man. And of caring about the people that you're in a band with, and realizing that how fortunate we are to have, these four talented individuals in a band that don't have any problem tolerating each other. That's kind of the hardest thing about being in a band is touring and being around each other all the time and annoying each other and all of these things. Tough. And that's why bands break up, man. Bands, and the other thing too, man, is there are no egos in our band. I mean, everybody's got an ego to some extent, right? I mean, it's not like there's no egos, but there's no ego that's getting in the way of the greater good of the band. Right. Like, there is no, it's my way or the highway with anybody. I have to eat shit sandwiches. Brent has to eat shit sandwiches. Zach has to eat shit sandwiches, and Barry has to eat shit sandwiches. It's not always going to go your way, but yes, the ability to not only eat the shit sandwich, but just learn to enjoy it, and learn to enjoy the taste of it a little bit, because what that means is that, man, like I might believe 1,000% in something, like, why are we doing this way? This is terrible. We need to do it this other way. And if I'm outvoted about it, then I just have to eat that shit sandwich and move forward, or it's never going to work. You can't, we don't get bitter about things.
So important. I mean, the best eating the shit sandwich analogy, man, that's good advice for anybody in any field. If you're not able to take things and if you have this kind of, why does this happen to me mindset, you're just going to be miserable all the time. Like you said, learn to enjoy it.
Here's the thing. It doesn't mean you have to like eating shit sandwiches. It doesn't mean you have to become like a pushover or something. It's not that. Like, definitely, like, we all voice our opinions about things, and we have arguments, and we have, and the other thing, here's another thing about longevity of Shinedown is if the other three guys are in the room and you're not in there, pretty sure they're probably talking shit about you. It's, and not in like a vindictive way, but it's like, I don't want to hear what they have to say about me, man, because I know when it's the three of us and one of them's not in there, we're talking about the other one too, but it's like this venting thing that can happen, and it's just kind of knowing that that's what it is, man. And I wish I had a more sexy way to describe it, man, but it is just like, it's like a brotherhood and a marriage all rolled up into one. And we're so fortunate to, like, look, man, I as long as everybody stays healthy, I know we'll be doing this until we're not, and we're the most boring reality show of all time, because there's no real drama, and that's the
way you have to be, I think, to have that type of longevity. Is you can't have these egos that, like you said, that won't get out of the way and stuff like that. And you guys, it's obvious that you've had the type of success over the amount of time that you have for a reason, and you've built up that catalog of just hits. I mean, even like Monsters from Attention is, one of my favorite songs you guys have ever written. I just think it's such a monster hit, and no pun intended, but your live show is just over the top amazing. Shinedown,
thank you.
Such an incredible live band, always have been. And you talked about when you guys get into the room and you perform together, it's magic. Talk about how that live show comes together and you know what it's like to perform with the guys.
Yeah, as far as bringing the actual show together and bringing something different every record cycle and something bigger, better, different, I have nothing to do with that. That's one of those places where I remove myself from it. Not I say remove myself from it. It's just not my forte, right? Like Zach is super good at coming up with ideas for live shows. Zach loves live music probably more than anybody I know. Like he still goes to shows.
Same.
Because he enjoys going to shows,
Yes.
I'm one of those people that like now that I know how the sausage is made, I don't really know if I want to go to too many shows, right? I'd much prefer being in the studio making music. But he and Brent and, we do have, some people that work with us on that for sure. But that's their department, man, to come up with like this big show design. And a lot of the times, man, I would say 90% of the time, I don't even know what our set looks like until I show up for rehearsals. And it's like, wow. Oh, cool. This is great. Now, I'm not saying they haven't sent me stuff. It's just, I don't know if I've looked at it or not. I'm like, look, this stage is badass. Just tell me where the flames are so I don't walk into one of them. And we're good. But musically though, for the show, that is my department. Like I'm kind of the music director, and I put together now Zach will put together the set lists. He loves doing set, and he's really good at it too, better than any of the rest of us. But once we have that set list, I start looking at it. I'm like, okay, how do we transition from this song into this song? And do we do a band interlude, like where we're actually playing, just off? And when we play like interlude stuff, we're usually playing off the cuff. Like it's different every night, Right. Maybe the riff that starts it might be the same, but like the journey that we're going to go on with that music is different every night. And I love that, man, because, it's a real chance just to kind of, be a musician for the night and like feel things out. And we do a bunch of those musical transitions like that during our show. And then we also have, like recorded interludes that go in between songs too. So then we can take a break and that kind of thing. But I'm actively involved in putting that stuff together.
Every guy in the band seems to have like a different, everybody's putting this all together. You all are like focusing on different things. It seems like.
Yeah. That's kind of why it works, man. And then, but like when we hit the stage, man, it's just, I use the Voltron analogy because I'm old, but, we're kind of like Voltron. It's like when we're all together, man, we got this superpower and we can do this thing and we can deliver, this experience for people that help them in their lives. And then when we separate from each other, when we're not on stage, we kind of go back to just being these mortal people that, we do okay on our own, but we're much better together. And, that thing happens when we get on stage together happens. If we haven't seen each other in 2 years, we can get on a stage and it just happens. Like it just, whatever that thing is locks in. And, it doesn't mean that we're the best musicians, man. Like, I'm not a shredder or anything, and nobody in my band's really a shredder, right? We just love playing songs. We love playing music and we make a certain kind of soup, that a soup that goes well with a shit sandwich. You know what I mean? we make a soup and we make a sound. We do a thing that only the four of us can do. And I don't know if I was necessarily as aware of it until Chris Lightcap, who is our monitor engineer, has been our monitor engineer since I've been in the band anyway, since 2007. I think he was there from 2006. I think that's when he started. But he said something about that one day. He's like, I don't think he and I were just talking about something. He's like, I don't think you understand like what you guys do when you get on stage. Like, what do you mean? He goes, like, there's a switch. There's like something that happens with the four of you that, is greater than the sum of your parts that always happens. Like, it's very rare that it he's like, I can think of one or two shows where something didn't lock in and it didn't happen, but we're so in tune with each other. Like, it's almost like I know where Brent's going to be. I know where Zach's going to be. I know where Barry is for sure. But we all kind of know, even musically, like what each one is going to do before we do it. We've had moments where things have gone wrong in the show, equipment failures or whatever's happened. And we all kind of just instinctively knew what to do and held the whole thing together without any sort of panic or anything else. I mean, a good example, man, is we had it was on Planet Zero, and it was a big arena show. I don't remember where we were, but the power went out the whole block. Like, power's gone. Emergency lights come on in the arena, everything's down, and it was like an hour of that. And we went back behind the video wall, and we're like, okay, this isn't coming back on. It's evidently the power's not just in the building; it's everywhere. What are we going to do?
Right.
And we went out on the stage and like got down and started like signing autographs and talking to people and like, walking around the periphery and then, just kind of held the whole, it's strange because that wasn't even a musical moment, but like we all just kind of knew what to do. It was like, hey man, like we're not going to let this thing fall apart. We're not going to, these people showed up here. We're not going to let them leave disappointed. Like, what can we do to hold this whole thing together? Same thing happened in Italy. We were playing a show in Italy. Power went out, and it was a small enough venue at that particular show. I think it was probably a 3,000, 2,000 capacity room or something. We brought out acoustic guitars, got down in the middle of the audience, and just played acoustic until the power came back on.
Wow.
And just moments like that, man. I know that's not really performance stuff. But that's what I mean. That's kind of the core of who we are as a band. It's like, we all want to give our best. We all want to, we love the fans. We want them to have a great experience, and we love each other. And I think that those things, all the combination of those things does create that thing that Chris was talking about that maybe I don't see all the time. Yeah, it's just like, again, we make a certain soup, I guess.
Y'all are, if I remember correctly, y'all are headlining Madison Square Garden this year. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Man, is that the first time y'all have headlined there?
It is.
That's cool.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome.
What does that feel like?
Pretty surreal. I there's something in my, I don't know, whatever happens up here, I kind of keep myself sheltered from those things. Like I know it's happening, but I don't really think about it. I think that if I let myself think too much about those things, I would get probably nervous and I have pretty bad imposter syndrome anyway, so that would probably go through the roof if I thought about that stuff too much, So I just kind of, went, oh, great, Madison Square Garden, that'll be cool, just kind of move on. Don't think about it too much. Very fortunate that it's happening. Like not ungrateful for it,
right?
But just try not to think about it too much. I do the same thing. Like, I don't have any platinum records on the walls. I don't have any awards in my house or in my studio. They're all in storage. That's not because it's not because I don't appreciate them. I do appreciate them, and I know they exist. Like, I know they're there, but there's something about staying hungry, man. There's something about
yes.
every record that I'm going to make is going to be my first record. I don't need reminders that I've already made these successful things. Like right now, I've kind of tied myself in knots about this new Shinedown record because I want it to be the best thing we've ever done. And there is no phoning it in. And so sometimes looking at those awards maybe feels like phoning it in a little bit, like, oh, look at all of my things that I've done, so I don't have to try anymore. And I just don't even want anything to tempt me like that, really. So, and it's kind of the same thing with the Madison Square Garden thing. It's like, yeah, we're playing Madison Square Garden. That's awesome. What's for lunch?
I got to tell you, I love your mindset on that. And I think that, they say like success, you have to earn it every single day to maintain it. You can't just rest on your laurels and you have to keep pushing forward, man. I really identify with that you're not putting any of your accolades on the walls or anything like that.
And by the way, like, that's, again, I would have to say that, like, that's not to say that I have a problem with other people doing that. Like,
correct.
Whatever you have to do to because some people need that. Some people need to look at that thing and go, that's me up there on that wall, and I'm a badass. Yeah. Like, some people need that to do the thing, to make great music, to be the artist. But there was a phrase or a saying that I'm gonna screw this up. It says a full stomach. What does it say? In essence, what it says is a full stomach makes a shitty hunter. Like, if you sit around with a full stomach all the time, you're not gonna make a very good hunter. Like, you have to be hungry to be a good hunter, right? So, do I take that to an extreme sometime? Yeah, probably. I probably take it to a point where I twist myself into knots and tie my brain up in ways that I probably shouldn't, but or I probably don't need to. But I kind of don't. I don't know any other way to be though.
So I feel like I'm somewhat similar. Obviously, I do a different thing though, but I feel pretty bad if I'm not working. I feel like pretty bad. I have a hard time enjoying like not working. I can't really relax. Do you feel that you're kind of like a creative?
Yeah. I don't vacation well.
Yeah. Like the same way, dude.
My wife made me go to over Halloween time. We went to Portugal and to the UK. And she was like, for my birthday, and she was like, we're going to go do this, and this is what we're doing. And I just had to kind of accept it. If she hadn't done that, I would have just worked right through. I'm in this room 98% of my life. I don't really leave the house. I'm working all the time, working on something at all times, and being really hard on myself about it at all times. Yep. And that's what I mean. Maybe I would produce, and not meaning like produce as in a producer, but I would put out. Maybe I would produce the same volume of successful things if I didn't do that to myself. I might not need to, but I don't really know any other way to be other than just like ruthlessly. What is it? Joe Rogan said he's ruthlessly introspective, right? Yeah. Like, then that's how I am. I'm just like very difficult on myself. Like, good enough isn't good enough.
I couldn't identify with that more. I think that if you're not, I think it's a sign of how much you care about what you do though, because, it's like a certain level of satisfaction. And there was this documentary I was watching. I don't remember. I think maybe it was the Vince McMahon documentary. And while there's a lot of criticisms of Vince McMahon, one of the interesting things from that documentary I saw is they kept talking about like he kept going higher and higher and higher. And he was never like, we did it. It was just like, okay, what's next? Like you said earlier, what's for lunch?
Well, here's the thing, man. I think that there is, and I hope I don't sound like too much of a downer when I say this, but there's a lot of misery wrapped up in that. And and that's how my thing is. That's where I'm at, is like, and as I get older, it starts to dawn on me more. It's like, oh, it's never going to be enough. Like, it's never going to be, there's never going to be enough success. And by the way, I don't mean like money success. I don't mean like I don't need to be famous.
I mean achievement.
Yeah. Achievement. That's the way to put it. Right. I don't need fame, and money is a great thing, but it's not my driving force. But as far as like, it's just like, okay, like I Had a Name record is going to come out on the 28th. It's going to come out at the end of this week. And that's something I've been eyeing for a long time. And then I'm going to wake up in the morning of the 29th. It won't be the 29th. It'll be the 1st because it's February. I'll wake up on the morning of the 1st and go, okay, what's next? Like, there's never a, it's like going every year, but having your birthday pass, but not having a party, it's like there's this build up. There's no build up to anything. There is a build up, but then the party doesn't happen. You're like, okay, moving on to the next thing. And, at some point though, I think, I'm going to have to figure out how to celebrate a little bit of something somehow. And I don't really know what that looks like, because, but I realize that I am kind of in a grinder of my own making, along with the other guys in my band, by the way. It's not just me, Brent does the same thing. Zach and Barry do the same thing. I've got other friends that do the same thing. There is always another mountain to climb. And the thing is when I die, whenever that is, I'll be looking up at a mountain that I was trying to climb at the time. Like, I'm never going to arrive anywhere.
Right. There's no end.
Yeah. And this is cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, is that there, the journey is the destination.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to slow down a little bit and enjoy the process of doing this podcast with you, like enjoying the things that come along with, with making things and doing things, because ultimately this is the reward. Being in this room and working on the things is the reward. There isn't there's no, it's not like if I'm ever lucky enough to win a Grammy, they're going to hand me the Grammy. I'm like, great, I've won rock and roll and I'm done, and now I can ride off into the sunset and be a rock and roll commentator or something like they do in sports, right? It's like you can't win the Super Bowl of rock and roll, and so at some point I have to start appreciating these moments and realizing that one day we're going to talk about the good old days, and they were right now, and so that's really the only, not that I need a remedy to it, but that's kind of the only solution that I've found in my thinking to kind of help me. Because I came to this harsh realization that like, oh, this merry-go-round is never going to stop. Like, I think somewhere back earlier in my life, even 5 years ago, I was like, I'm grinding towards something, and then I'm going to get there to that thing, and I'm going to be able to kind of go, take a deep breath and look around and go, yeah, I did the thing. And it's like, no, that's not it. I finally realized that that's not what it is. It's just, that's why every record's got to be my first record. That's why every tour has to be bigger than the last one. Because there is no arrival. There's no, there's no arrival train station, right? It's like, we're just on the fucking train, man. It's just going.
Let me ask you this about this is I really identify with this. So a lot of people that I know that kind of have this crazy work ethic like you do, how much of this, maybe not now, but how much of this maybe when you started was rooted in maybe like uncertainty? If I don't go 150%, this is going to be gone. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I think a lot of this stuff comes from childhood. Like if I have to be a psychologist about it for a second, it's like I was a neurodivergent kid. Did not know that what I was dealing with. Didn't know that I had ADD. Didn't know that I had executive dysfunction and autism and all of these things. And I never felt comfortable. Like school was crazy, like scary to me. Like I didn't like school. I didn't do well with schoolwork. Same. I got picked on constantly, and I think that if you go back to those times, it's like, okay, you didn't realize it at the time, or at least I didn't realize it at the time, but I was in survival mode, like all the time, like 24/7. I was always in, how do I survive today? And I know that's, by the way, very blessed to be in America. Realized that I wasn't starving to death, had a great childhood and family. I know there are people out there who are, I can just see it in the comments. I can see it in the comments now, Yeah.
It's a psychological state of being.
Yeah. I was a kid. I didn't know any different. So for my situation, I was in survival mode. Right. And so I think that, again, like, realizing like, as soon as I set foot there, that college wasn't for me. Like it was like, no, this isn't it, man. I got to be grinding. I got to be doing something different. Like this doesn't feel right. And then hit the ground running. And then it's like, okay, now I'm in charge in a way that I wasn't in charge when I was younger. I couldn't really control the things around me when I was younger. Still not knowing what I was dealing with. I still didn't know until the last couple of years about the neurodivergent stuff. Right. But I did know that as soon as I left college, okay, now I'm in control of my destiny for the first time in my life. Like I'm driving the Eric car for the first time ever. And you're right, man. It becomes about proving something at all times. It's like, I have to break out of jail, and I have to continue to break out of jail and grind and grind and grind. And even in those earlier bands that I was in, even though professionally, maybe I was grinding in the wrong direction, or I wasn't grinding toward a successful end for that band. I was learning an awful lot, man. And I was doing it with my friends but learning how to navigate the music business and learning how to become a better artist, how to, sort of starting to learn how to be a songwriter, but doing it from a place of, success is the lowest acceptable bar. Like anything below success is trash. Success is the lowest possible thing.
Yes.
But we're aiming way above that all the time. And I'm still there
for the best.
Yeah. And I'm still there. And I still haven't achieved, I think about songs that I've written and recorded and produced, and Shinedown or my solo record. It's like I can maybe think of one or two songs that I'm like, yeah, I think that's really good. Maybe one or two, and then it's like I can always this could have been better, or this doesn't feel like. I maybe when I'm producing a track, I have like something I'm aiming for, and I never exactly hit the thing I was aiming for, and it's like that's a disappointment to me. Mixes are a big thing for me, man. Like I like people would be like, I mean, number one songs, and I'm like, yeah, that mix is trash though. Like,
dude. So you said Brent is kind of the same way. I posted. Yeah. This is funny. I posted some news story about Shinedown. It was great. And the song I picked was like, I think it was In Memory. So it's like a really old song, but I fucking love that song. And Brent comments, he's joking. He's like, you use this old song? And I'm like, bro, it's an amazing track. And I think I really thought when he said that, I'm like, he's just like everybody else.
Yeah,
he looks back on their old work, no matter how great. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. Yeah. And it's like, no matter how good it is, you look back and you're like, I don't, whatever. It's just crazy to me.
Well, that's being on the inside, and it's why. But again, I think this is why I don't rest on the laurels, because I don't ever soak it in, because I can't. It's like if I turn on the radio and listen to Dance Kid Dance right now, all I hear is everything that went wrong with it and things that I wish were different with it, and I really wish that I could change this and that, but I can't. And so rather than me spending time overanalyzing something that's too late for me to change anything on, it's done, it's over here, and I moved on to something else, But and this brings us back around, but I believe right now Dance Kid Dance is the number one rock song in the country.
Wow.
Right. And
another, do you guys still hold the record for that as well?
Yeah, I think this is 24th number one.
Unbelievable. Still not happy.
No, but here's the thing, man. It's like I'm not. Look, I'm not happy with that mix, right? Like, let's just be honest. Like, I'm like
the mix sounds amazing. So does Planet Zero.
I'm pretty happy with the Planet Zero mix, actually.
Sounds amazing.
Thank you. But I kind of had to like abandon Dance Kid Dance in the mix. Like, I could have mixed that. I think I did like 9 mixes of it. I wanted to do like I hadn't landed on the way I wanted it to sound. And I still haven't, and it never will be. It'll be what it is.
Keep your ears fresh.
Stress. I don't know. I get up. I tend to take a good many breaks during the day. I kind of know this room pretty well. I sort of know what it needs to be. But when you get to that, look, man, I'm just super picky about it. It's not like I know it doesn't sound bad. I know it doesn't sound right, but it doesn't sound how I envisioned it sounding in the end. Like there were some things that I wish could happen more and better. And, and so, but other than that stuff, man, when you start getting that's minutia stuff. And like that's what happens when you get really, hyper focused on being amazing at what you're doing, is like, right. It's, you start to put it under a magnifying glass too much. It's like, I bet that if I played the last 3 mixes of Dance Kid Dance that I had, no one would really be able to go, yeah, that's way different, but it is what it is. But anyway, I digress. But what I'm trying to do is rather than just go, yeah, Dance Kid Dance is number one, now we're on to the next thing, is like, take a second, man, and go, that's a number one song, that left this studio 4 weeks ago. How about that? Right. And it's already a number one song.
And I feel like for people like you and myself included, this is something I found that works for me with like finding a way to relax. I call it a vacation speed run. So basically, instead of, I'm not doing a week-long vacation or whatever. I mean, I can, but like, I'll just pick one day out of the week and I'll be like, okay, I'm not going to think about anything related to work for this one day. And I find I feel a little bit refreshed just from one day. Maybe, I don't know.
That's probably not a bad idea, man.
Yeah.
I do have stuff like that. So like I live in Charleston and I'm blessed enough. I live right here on a little inlet from the ocean right here. And so I got my boat right there, and I love offshore fishing. And so,
oh, that's amazing.
So like when I can, man, I put, 200 pounds of ice on the boat and get the poles, put it in the water, get my friends, and head out 50 miles offshore and fish all day in the blue water and come back. And that usually is a pretty good, that's usually a pretty good checkout. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm based in Virginia, so we're waterfront as well. My whole life, and I just really feel the same. I'll go to the beach and try to. More of my friends are more into fishing, but I'm not very good at it. But I enjoy sitting there while my friends.
You don't have to be good. I'm not good at it.
Yeah,
it's just I don't. I'm one of those guys, one of those weirdos that I don't. I'm spending the fuel money on the adventure, not on the fish.
That's right.
Like, I mean, like, literally, because you guys have deep water closer than we do. We have a very, we have to go all the way out, basically out to the Gulf Stream, and that's about 60 miles or so, and so it's about the adventure, man. It's just about like, I come around that corner and the inlet's right in front of me, and that's just the ocean is right there. Bermuda is straight that way. Like if I just go that way, I hit Bermuda eventually, and I dig that, man. I like doing that. I like turning that corner and seeing that, and then just driving straight out into the ocean, and no one can get in touch with me. And I dig that. So you make a good point. The speed vacation. That's sort of what I'm doing with that, I think. Yeah,
just taking, and even for me, it's like going to a show is like a vacation to me. As many shows several times a week during peak touring season, I'll go to a show, and I really, to this day, never get tired of it. You mentioned the Sound of Madness tour cycle, which would seem like it went on forever. I don't know if you remember this, and I don't know if this was the beginning, but there was a show. This is before the album came out, Sound of Madness, such an amazing record. But you guys were seemingly doing like warm-up shows or something, and one of them was at the Norva in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
And I was at that show.
Somebody had a seizure at that show.
Maybe. I don't know. But I just remember
somebody had a seizure from the lights at that show. I remember that.
Yeah, an amazing venue there at the Norva, and then after that, you guys were just straight up arenas. The whole, Well,
honestly, man, that was. I don't think that was warm up. What that was like, we didn't really hit the arenas hard until Second Chance took off.
Yeah,
and then, like, dude, we spent the. The first shows we did. Well, the first show I ever played with the band was. This is a difficult first show. The first show I ever played with the band was an outdoor festival in Jacksonville, Florida, which is where the band's bass was. And I'm the new bass player in the band. The old bass player lives in Jacksonville. The old guitar player lives in Jacksonville. This new version of Shinedown, I guess, is coming out that people hadn't seen yet. And it was... that was very nerve-wracking, that one. And then I think the second show was Earth Day Birthday in Orlando the next night. So it was like 3 festival shows, like right in a row, with the first 3 shows I played. But then, man, it was small clubs. It was that small club circuit that most bands have done. And it really didn't start taking off. We spent the release day, the day that the Sound of Madness came out, we were in Pharr, Texas. That's Pharr, I think, Pharr, Texas. Like you can throw a rock and hit Mexico. Like it's like right on the border. Western Texas, El Paso type area, I guess, not in El Paso, but like down around that area. And we played for 250 people in a bar that had, like, there were salt and pepper shakers on the tables. Like,
wow.
The day that record came out, that's where we were. And we kind of stayed, other than opening slots, we kind of stayed in that sort of area until Second Chance hit. And once Second Chance hit, then it was, we went into some big theaters and then into arenas. And now we're at a place where it's like, we play the big theaters as warm up shows, and it's like, it's kind of, it's definitely, but I'll say something else too, man, for being someone who had just come into the band. I was in a recording studio for like 5 years or so, maybe 4 years. I hadn't even been on a stage,
Wow.
And then when I joined the band, and to go, to have like the second or third, I guess it was the second or third single out of the gate, Second Chance, be a #1 top 40 song. It's like, I thought that was just kind of normal, right? It's like, oh, this is just normal. This is what it's, and it's not normal. It's like this anomaly. And it explains why everybody around us was so excited about that. And I guess I just hadn't been in it long enough to really be able to appreciate it. And that's why when we had a run like we had with Symptom of Being Human, getting back onto the top 40 chart, which is a huge leap for a rock band. I think we were the first band to have a top 15 at top 40 since we did it with Second Chance, or since we did it with If You Only Knew. I think If You Only Knew went to #8. But to be able to do that again, this time meant an awful lot to me, man, because to be honest with you, man, I've seen, Brent is we talked about me and the way that my brain is with being creative. Brent's brain is like that with not so much with the songwriting. Like songwriting for him is very easy. It's very fluid. And I can be like that with songwriting. I mean, I can, you get into a flow state with lyrics and stuff like that. But
sure,
I beat myself up about the songs, I guess is the way I'm saying. Brent doesn't beat himself up about the songs. He's like, I know in the end they'll be awesome. And he just kind of moves on.
Self-assured.
But what he does, man, is he worries about the trajectory of the band and promoting the band. And so all of these great things that we've accomplished at radio and with awards and whatever, I would say 75% of that, other than, of course you have to have the songs, we have to make the songs, but I'm saying the business is Brent grinding, man, grinding to try to make it happen.
Even when you guys aren't on, I don't know that people really pay attention to this, but very few bands like hit the pavement when you guys aren't even touring on album cycle. Brent seemingly is like traveling around the US.
He is,
like running the business or like meeting people, pushing the band forward, making connections.
Yes.
Few people do that like in the off season, so to speak, for a band.
He does it 24/7. And so that's why when A Symptom of Being Human happened, like he called me, like we got this really huge ad at a station, really, really big deal for that song. And he just called me all emotional about it, man. And it's like, it kind of makes me emotional when I think about it, just because it meant so much to him, because he's worked so hard at it, so, this time, so being able to see how much it means to have a song be that successful, it meant more to me. I wish I'd gotten a sense of that when Second Chance happened, but I just hadn't been at it long enough to really be able to understand what was going on. I was just happy I was there for the food, man. I was just happy to be there at the time. But now, like, becoming our band has become a band. Our band became a band on that record cycle, on the we've talked about it. I won't revisit too much of that, but and no disrespect, please understand, no disrespect to Leave a Whisper or to Us and Them or to Jason Todd or Brad Stewart, either one of them, because again, Brad Stewart has never been anything but a gentleman to me, man. He's a really, really nice dude. The conversations I've had with him, but the four of us kind of look at Sound of Madness as the band's first record.
So amazing, because for me, I really became a fan on those first two albums, and Sound of Madness still one of my favorites. But
but again, that for us, I guess it just feels like the first. That feels like when everything kicked off.
It was like a new beginning for you guys.
Yeah, So
that's so amazing, and I just got to say, this has been such a fascinating conversation. This has been one of the best conversations I've had in a while, and
I appreciate
having watched your career and seeing how much Shinedown has done and continue to do. I mean, you guys are this far into your career, decades now doing this, and you're headlining. It's not just having success; it's having success over a long period of time is like damn near impossible, 0.0001%. And so I'm pleased to find from talking to you, and I mean this in a good way, that you're like a madman like me, because that's kind of how you have to be. to have this kind of sustained success. You can't do it by being like, I talk to some people that are just like, oh, I don't worry about the business. That's for other people, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm just like, whoa, dude, you're like trusting random uninvolved third parties to like control the outcome of your life. That's hard for me.
For sure. Something that's interesting though, and I appreciate that compliment, but if I look around at the other bands, our contemporaries, people that we love and we get along with, I think about Papa Roach. They pop into my head. Like, just like four of the best dudes, man, like family to us. But they're a tight knit group as well. Like they're not going anywhere. Like they love each other. They do they remind me of us, you know? But I think you have kind of the same personalities. And if I look at other bands that are still together, you know, you kind of have the same four personalities or the same three personalities spread out over four people, or the same four personalities spread out over six people in any really successful band. And I think that you know, you always kind of have the like the band mom. I look at Barry. Barry's like the band mom. He's always worried about everybody. He's the most compassionate human being I know. All heart all the time. He's the glue. He's the thing that's like, you know, holding us together personality wise. Every band has to have that sort of like rock star type. Yes, Zach, right? Zach's like the, you know, he's you know, he's on social media all the time. He's out at all the shows. He's doing the rock star thing.
He's hilarious. I love that guy.
I think you have to have the super sort of internally creative person. I would say that's probably me doing that. And then you have to have the business guy, you know, and that's Brent. And the guy that really is passionate about the business stuff, you know, not just doing it, like passionate about it. And then you have to have the lead singer, and we have that as well. I say wrapped up into that one person. But
phenomenal.
But I think if you look at a band like Papa Roach, they have those same things too. They have like those same personalities, but they can exist in different, you know, like I look at like I may be speaking out of class here, but you know, Tobin for sure in Papa Roach is the music guy, and so is Antoine too, his brother, who's with the band now. They're always working on music, man. It's always about music. Wow. You know, and then you've got like Jerry, who's like, you know, he's like the pole, and the rest of them are tetherballs. You know, he's very grounded, you know. And then you got Tony, who is the rock star type. Like he's always out, you know, juking and jiving and doing the whole thing. And then you got, you know, Jacoby's the lead singer type. But Jacoby takes care of a lot of the business too, you know. And so it's I think if you look around the industry, the bands that are solid, that are together, I think you're going to find those personalities kind of in each camp in various forms. But I think those elements have to exist for, you know, to be successful and to have that longevity, you know. And it's and I think if you remove one of those pieces, man, it doesn't work.
Man, Eric Bass, I Had a Name. The new record is out now. That's when this is dropping, and such a fascinating conversation. When you guys are ready to drop that new Shinedown record, I'd love to have you guys conversation again. I'll definitely be seeing you at shows this year, probably several. I'll try not to be too much of a punisher. But Eric, man, this is a freaking phenomenal conversation. I truly mean that. So much like mind-blowing insight into a band that I have loved for decades now, and really appreciate it. I have linked to this new record down in the description. Be sure you follow him on all the platforms, and then save that record. It's down there right now. I've linked to his website. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Man, thank you as well. I really appreciate it. I had a great time talking to you.
Likewise.